Hello all and welcome to the True Hope Cast podcast, where we take a deep dive into mental health's many physiological and psychological aspects. This is the show for you if you're looking for motivation, inspiration, knowledge and solutions. That's what we are all about here at True Hope Canada. True Hope Canada is a mind and body based supplement company dedicated first and foremost to promoting brain and body health through non-invasive nutritional means. For more information about us, you can visit truehopecanada.com. Today I welcome Katharine Giovanni to the podcast. Now, Katharine is a 3-time award-winning best-selling author. She's a speaker and also one of the original founders of the independent concierge industry. Katharine has authored over 12 books, including her latest release, The Ultimate Path to Forgiveness: Unlocking Your Power. Katharine's journey from battling stage 3 breast cancer and having a challenging childhood has given her a profound insight into resilience and forgiveness. And today on the show, we're going to be talking all about forgiveness. Enjoy the show. Okay, Katharine, welcome to True Hope Cast. Thank you so much for being with me today. How are you? What is going well?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well today.
Wonderful. Glad to hear that. Well, we're going to be talking about forgiveness today. And before we jump into that very interesting topic that I think everybody's got an opinion on and experience on, but I think nailing down and getting to have a conversation with an expert about a very interesting topic that we all share, I can't wait to do that. So just before we do that, can you just give us a little bit of an introduction about who you are and what it is that you do, please?
Sure. Everybody is taught to forgive. Your teachers, your parents, everybody tells you you need to forgive. Nobody teaches you how. And what if you don't want to? Then what do? I teach the how. On a 10 scale, with 10 being an unforgivable dumpster fire, and number 1 being the easiest person on the planet. Everybody listening to this broadcast is thinking of their number 10. That's fair. That's why everybody freaks out about the word forgiveness. But in my world, I have created a brand new system that's going to take you step by step on how to forgive all of these people on that 10 scale. Now, I've been doing forgiveness for very long time. It probably started in never mind what year it was. I don't think we need to go there, but let's just say I was in the 8th grade and my parents were very pickled people. They were alcoholics, needless to say. So it was a little dysfunctional. And I was getting bullied in school because I was different. So I tried to commit suicide. And I spent the next 15 years as one of those kids. You know, the kids I'm talking about, draped in black, and they're kind of depressed. And then when about 10, 15 years later, when my mother fell down a flight of stairs, broke her hip, and ended up in the hospital, even my mother couldn't get a gin and tonic in the hospital. So she dried out. And we became very, very close. And she died 3 years later. And I realized very quickly, if I didn't change my life, I would die too. So I quit drinking. I've been sober 34 years. And that's kind of like the flash when my life completely changed. And I got onto this path of forgiveness to figure out exactly how to forgive people. And I did a bunch of business stuff too. Yeah. They've written 12 books. So yeah, a lot of water under the bridge.
Yeah, that's a lot of books as well. I've just been going through your website, but why? So, how do you get into the world of forgiveness professionally?
I am one of the original founders of the independent concierge industry, and when you teach people how to be a concierge, quite frankly, you need to teach them how to stop being angry on a dime. Because they probably have somebody in front of them that's probably angry at something they've done, and the concierge probably can't leave their desk. And back in those days, we're going back to the early 2000s. I am that old. And back in those days, you didn't bring a soft topic like forgiveness to business workshops. You just didn't do it. And I was teaching these 2-day workshops, but I legitimately can't teach you how to provide over-the-top customer service. I mean, I could teach you the words. I could teach you the look. But if you're angry, your anger is going to bleed through your body language, whether you want it to or not. So I had to come up with a way to let these people lose their anger so they could be real and authentic in front of people. And that's when I stumbled upon forgiveness.
Beautiful. So I love that you're talking about, we all know that we should forgive, and we're kind of taught that from a very young age, that we need to say sorry, but we're not really taught good mechanisms or different mechanisms of how to forgive, because there are very, very different situations that may
Right.
require forgiveness. So um, let's just break this down and start simply. So, like, what is forgiveness? What's your definition?
First of all, it just because I forgive you doesn't mean I want a relationship with you. I probably don't, and that's fine. Just because I forgive you doesn't mean you're all of a sudden getting a pass and you're all of a sudden correct. You're not. You're still wrong and you're still a dumpster fire. Forgiveness for me means that I want you out of my head. The person you're mad at is probably not thinking about you at all, which makes people even more irritated because it's completely messing up your life.
Hmm.
But I want you out of my head so I can pay attention to stuff. Let me give you an image. If anybody is listening to this broadcast, you might want to go watch the visual. I'm about to hold a coffee cup up in front of my face. This coffee cup, actually tea, we want to be really specific, represents anger. It represents bitterness. So notice my body language. When I'm first angry, I can hold it off to the side. I can manage my anger. It's really easy. The longer I hold on to my anger and my bitterness, the more it's going to affect my life. Now look at my body language. I'm using two hands to hold the cup. I still can hold it off to the side, but it's starting to get into my conversations, isn't it? So if I keep holding on to it, now I'm holding the cup in front of my face. My life has stopped. Every part of my being is focused on the anger. I am missing opportunities, job opportunities. I missed my dream significant other. I am missing everything because I'm completely focused on the anger. Well, Catherine, I'm spinning the stories funny. I really have forgiven them. No, you haven't, because you're still telling them. You're still wearing them like a badge of honor. So by forgiving all of that, it's allowing you to start paying attention to your life. And now you can become the person you were always meant to become from the beginning. But you can't start with the unforgivable people. My method and my system is going to make you start with the easy ones.
Hmm.
The person who cuts you off on I-95 on the road, the person who cuts you off in the grocery store, the person who stole your sandwich from the office fridge. You can forgive these people. They're easy. And as you forgive the easy ones, it's going to start to open up your life. That's part of it.
We're often
Okay.
told, yeah, we should be forgiving other people, but like in regards to like how to do it, because that's just something that we don't really think about. We don't really think about that implementation of teaching, especially like young kids. We just say sorry, and we kind of
That's
like
right.
push that until we do it. Like there's no other real narrative there, and I don't see that to be a very helpful practice, even though I do that sometimes in my weak moments of parenting. So what are some of the strategies, especially for parents, that we can do to help children and adults learn how to forgive and actually have a practice around that rather than just empty words?
Well, before we talk about the how, let's talk about the why. Everybody says you need to forgive and forget. Okay. Yeah. Hold on. I'm not forgetting. Your girl's not going to forget. There might be a unicorn magical person on the planet somewhere who can do that, but I'm not your girl. What I can promise you is that this system is going to it's going to remove the emotional part of it. So when you look back at that person or memory, you're not going to have any emotion. It's going to be neutral. That's what I'm looking for. Then people will look at you and say, "Well, anger is toxic. You need to forgive." Okay, how? Well, there was a study done by a Japanese researcher. You can Google it right online. And I'm getting his first name right, but I can't remember his last name, but it's Masamoto something. And it's a Japanese water study. You can Google it. And I'm going to simplify it. He took several containers of water. One container of water, he spoke loving, beautiful words to. The other container of water, he spewed hate at it. He talked to it badly. And then he froze the water and then he put it under a microscope. The water he said really horrible things to had these black and brown formations, really ugly. And the water he spoke love to had these beautiful formations that were gorgeous. Why am I telling you this? Because if your self-talk is bad and you're angry and you're bitter and you're holding on to all of this stuff, what do you think it's doing to the water molecules in your body? It's literally making you sick. Now, Einstein did say energy is neither created nor destroyed. So it just transforms into one thing to another. And he also said everything on our planet, including this microphone, has energy around it. So the whole special sauce to the entire method is nobody remembers or nobody even thinks to forgive the energy around people. So my method is very simple. I'm a simple soul. You don't have to dance. You don't have to hold a crystal unless you really want to. You don't have to burn any incense unless that's your thing. Go for it. It's a very simple poem. And I'm going to have you forgive the person, the energy around the person, yourself, the energy around you, and the energy around the whole thing. Now, how do you forgive the dumpster fire number 10 person? Because that's what everybody is thinking about right now while I'm talking. How do I forgive that unforgivable person? I did say that you don't have to forgive your unforgivable people. There are things on the planet that are unforgivable, 100%. And we all know that. You don't have to forgive them. Why? Because there's dozens of other things you can forgive. In other words, you can forgive all the people that you labeled 1 to 9. Now, if you really want to forgive your number 10s, and I have forgiven my number 10s, don't forgive the actual person. There's a reason why I call it a dumpster fire, because in that memory, there's other things in the dumpster. Let's say you were bullied in school. I use this example a lot. And let's say you were bullied in school and you don't want to forgive the bully. Okay. How about forgiving the building where you went to school and the energy around the building? How about forgiving the table, the desk, the chair, the lamp? Pull out other things in the memory that you can forgive. And then keep coming back until maybe you can forgive the actual person. If you can't forgive the person, forgive the energy around them and just keep going. Forgive what you can and keep going and move on with your life.
Very interesting strategy. And I think a lot of people listening will be totally aware and understand exactly, especially the water study you're talking about the energetic effect of particular types of emotion. And that can absolutely be recorded and registered and studied as it absolutely has been done. And you can feel the energy of certain individuals, whether like you know them or not, whether they're like in a seriously angry place or a seriously happy place. Like we have developed evolutionary to be able to sense that. And so when you're talking about like somebody who's living with a lot of angry emotions, or somebody who's living with a lot of forgiveness in their lives and a lot of grace and love, like without question, those people are living very, very different lives, externally as well as more significantly internally.
It's amazing when you forgive the energy. A lot of people will look at me and say, I had a rough childhood. I don't want to go back there. You know, then other people will say, well, it's ridiculous. I'm in my 50s and I'm getting upset about something that happened when I was a kid. Well, it's tripping you up. The fact that you're talking about it and you're still thinking about it is tripping you up. A lot of people's number 10s is their family, mother, father, sibling, business partner. Some people's number 10s are themselves. Now, I have forgiven my number 10s. I've managed to forgive my parents. And it took a little bit of Simone Biles level mental gymnastics to do it. I'm not religious at all, but there is a passage in the Bible that says, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. And what he means by that is if you're in the 5th grade and you don't know trigonometry, I can't be mad at you because you haven't learned it yet. So my parents did the best they could with the tools they had at the time. Was it good enough? Of course not, but they did their best. And that's kind of how I forgave myself. I compartmentalized myself. I looked at teenage Katharine as a separate entity, and I looked at her life, and I forgave the energy around all of her. And I can forgive that kid because she was a kid. She didn't have the tools. I forgave 1974 and the energy around the year. Why did I forgive 1974, you ask? Well, because that's the year I tried to commit suicide. So I picked apart the memory. I forgave all the players in that year, the energy around all these people, and it was still in my head. I still was there was still something there. So I finally forgave the actual year and the energy around the year. And now I can look back at my childhood, and instead of pulling out the hate and the horrible things, which I can still remember and dredge up if you want me to, but I remember the pockets of love that were there and the pockets of people that were trying to give me love. That's what I remember now, It's almost like I've changed my past because now I've moved beyond it.
Why is it so it's seemingly more obvious and apparent that people hold on to these emotions of anger and rage? Like, it seems like a lot of people have got, I don't want to say skeletons in the closet, but a lot of people struggle significantly with things that happened to them in their past and that causes them um, depressive symptoms and even anxieties into the future. But why is it that those are the are a particular set of emotions that we cling on to that hold us back?
Because as children, we're told to forgive, but nobody teaches us how. We are not given the tools to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
And they give us some platitudes and they quote quotes at us thinking that's going to help. And when you don't want to forgive because you're mad, you stuff it inside your brain, and your brain is an amazing tool. It protects you.
Yeah.
So you may think you've forgotten about it, but that's your brain's way of having your back. It put it in a back closet in your brain, and it's going to stay there until you're mentally ready to let it come out. But it's like a movie playing in the back of your mind that you don't even know is there. And it just plays, and it affects your life. It affects your relationships. It affects marriages, and it's something from your past, and you don't know it's there until you start this process. I had a friend of mine. I lead people through this, in private sessions too, if they don't want to do it on their own. So she labeled somebody, which she thought was a level 4 person, because I'm going to have you sit down and I'm going to have you write down all the people you think you need to forgive and all the memories. And then I want you to rate them from 1 to 10. Now you can have 7 number 5s. I don't care. The world is your oyster. But she rated somebody like a level 4, and I led her through my mantra, and she got madder, and she realized it was actually a level 8. So what happened? She started forgiveness is like an onion. She peeled back the first layer and she forgave it. And her brain went, "Oh, you're ready now." And it opened up the closet because she was ready. That's what forgiveness does. But as kids, we're not taught this. We're not taught how to forgive. We're just simply told to forgive. And if we don't want to, it causes anger. And that's completely fair.
So we've got a lot of upset, angry, depressed, anxious youth in the world, and adults for sure. Like, I see it more predominant now than probably ever in my adult life that I've been consciously aware of.
The world's pretty negative right now. I was an upset, angry youth, so yeah, I can identify.
For sure, it can be a scary place, and you don't have perhaps the power that you may want to have, or control. It can be very easily it can be easy to slip into remorse and anger, for sure. But I'm thinking about faith and religion, Christianity,
right?
That we have a big lack of that in our world as well. And I think that maybe, do you see a connection? Because I looked up before, like I was just looking over your website, I was looking over some of the questions we were going to go over, and I wondered how frequently forgiveness comes up in the Bible. And I'm going to read this to you now. So, like, forgiveness appears 15 times. Right. Forgive shows up 121 times, and forgiven appears 55 times. So it's quite predominant through the Bible. And I just wonder what do you think about the connection with maybe there's been a lack of faith in the religion, and an increase in anger and rage, and a lack of ability to forgive? Do you see a correlation there?
I think there is a correlation. I mean, Jesus did say, how many times should we forgive? We should forgive 70 times 7, which means do it a lot. And then there's another passage in there that says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil." We had to memorize Bible verses back in grammar school. It's the only reason I can quote this stuff at you. But notice he said, walk through the valley of the shadow of death. He did not say have lunch there. He did not say stay a while and find some friends. He said walk through it. So as we walk through our life, and as we go through this stuff, the way to forgiveness is not to stuff anger and forget about it as a negative emotion and toss it aside, because that's just going to trip you up later. The way through is to face it so you can forgive it and you can neutralize it. Forgiving and forgetting is not something a human being can do. I mean, as I said, there are probably some people that can do it, but I sure as hell can't. But what I can promise you is once you use this method of forgiveness, you can go on Facebook, for example, and look at somebody that maybe was like a number 7 person, and you won't care.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to sit there and say, wait, that happened to me a couple months back. I looked at a person and I didn't care. And I thought, well, that's novel. I don't care. I used to care a lot. Now I don't care. See, when you forgive people, it's not going to do anything for the person you're forgiving, because it's not. Forgiveness is selfish. You do it for you. You can forgive dead people because where they are or not doesn't matter a lick. You want them out of your head. So if they're in your head, you can forgive it. And you can forgive other things too. You can forgive politicians. If something makes you mad, you can forgive it. You can forgive politicians. You can forgive the crisis in the Middle East. It's not going to help the Middle East, but it's going to help you a lot. It's going to make you feel better.
Yeah, when I started to dabble in meditation as a form of trying to improve my life, I was going to get specific there, but I can't. Well, I was trying to improve my life. I took the opinion once I was starting to practicing, I was becoming a lot more self-aware and internalizing a lot of things, that none of my anger, none of my judgment, none of my resentfulness was serving me. And once I had that very obvious, simple realization, I didn't want to give any of my energy away anymore. And then after I would catch myself being, oh, you're being judgmental, that's what I meant, or you're being judgmental, I'd just say change to myself. And then eventually, in a very short period of time, actually, like my mind wouldn't even go to do the judgment anymore, because I'd wired a different pathway. And it was all from the idea that that nobody is benefiting from, my judgmentalism or my anger. And having that forgiveness is a very empowering, it's a very powerful thing to do. And it honestly creates capacity to do other things that are significantly more helpful to you as an individual. What do you think about that?
The forgiveness energy is going to help you 100%. It's going to do nothing for the person you're forgiving. You don't have to reach out and talk to this person. You don't have to call them unless you want to. You do it in the privacy of your own home, and nobody has to know you've done it. But it's going to help your body. You're literally changing the cells within your body. Let me give you an example. And this might stretch your brains a little bit. I promise I will be gentle. It will not hurt too much. I decided to forgive somebody I went to school with. Level 1 kind of person. Easy peasy. Couldn't even remember what we were mad at. We used to be really close. So I sat down and I thought, I can forgive this person. So I imagined the person was in front of me as I remembered her from the 19, never mind what year it was, and not the adult, the kid. And if you want to get out your feelings and talk, that's fine. Say whatever you want. You're in a room all alone. You can do whatever you want, right? And if you can't imagine the person in front of you, get a chair, put their picture or their name on the chair, talk to the chair. I'm actually not kidding. And then once you've gotten it out, I said my mantra. I forgave her and the energy. And then I imagined that she left the room. I hadn't talked to this person in over 35 years. This is true. She was 700 miles away from me at the time. 2 hours later, she called me up on the phone. Now, I was shocked out of my mind, but my concierge training did kick in, thank God. And we said all the right things and made all the right noises, and we reminisced and, all that kind of stuff. And I'm a curious little bear. And I said, I have to know, after all these years, why did you choose to call me today? She said, it's the damnedest thing. 2 hours ago, which is exactly when I was saying my mantra, a figurine you gave me in school flew off my shelf and landed in the middle of the floor, and I thought I should forgive you. And that's exactly when I was saying it. So forgiveness is like the law of gravity. It's going to work whether you believe it in or not. You can call the law of gravity the law of keeping Simon on the planet. It's going to work. It doesn't care. You can say, I don't believe in the law of gravity. Doesn't care. It's still going to work. This is the same. And it's a very powerful force that has the power to move something, a figurine 700 miles away, or change the cells in your body from black, brown yuck to something that's actually healthy. This is really powerful stuff, but please, with every fiber of my being, start with the easy ones. Don't start with the 10s. They're a bear. It's going to take a minute. But this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's also called shadow work in many circles.
That's right.
Because you're working with the shadows of the past.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about, you may or may not know the answer to this, but within therapy, I wonder how much they discuss the idea of forgiveness and practice. I recently read Bad Therapy by Abigail Schreier. I've been a fan of some of her books for a while. I read this book, and it's interesting the fact that she's talking about like maybe everyone being in therapy all of the time and reliving all the negative parts like week in, week out probably isn't serving those individuals. And I'm not a therapist. I've never been to school for it. So, and I don't know too many of them, but I don't know. But it would be very interesting to see if forgiveness was a strong part of that practice to actually, you know, help people process and go through those things that could have happened to them 30 years ago, that, you know, that person could be long gone, could be dead, could be on the other side of the country. We don't know. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel that that's a practice that would happen within therapies?
If they could implement my system within therapy, I think it would have a massive success, because I'm taking you back into a particular memory and I want you to pick it apart, and I want you to forgive the pieces of that memory. And then eventually you might be able to forgive the person. Let me explain. Let's say you go to your parents' house for Christmas every year. The only reason I'm calling this person Martha is because I don't have an Aunt Martha. So it was a very safe name. Let's say your parents put you next to Aunt Martha. My mother always used to say, every family's the same, only the names are different. So every family has an Aunt Martha. She drinks entirely too much, and she's nasty, but she loves to push people's buttons and make them mad. She really gets off on it. We all have somebody like that in our family. And for some strange reason, your parents and your family always sits you next to Aunt Martha, and you leave completely discombobulated. You're always upset. It takes you days to get over it because she's really good at pushing those buttons. So what do? I want you to forgive Aunt Martha before Christmas. You might even start now. It's November. No, it's not. It's October 31st.
Close.
Anyway, whatever date it is. You know, you've got a few weeks before Christmas, let's just say. So if you can't forgive Aunt Martha, which is totally fair because you've got decades sitting next to the lady, pick out a Thanksgiving that was particularly horrible, or Christmas that was particularly horrible, and forgive other things in the memory. And I'm actually serious. Forgive the table and the energy around the table. Forgive the turkey, the energy around the turkey. Just humor me and do it anyways. I know you think it's ridiculous. Forgive the chairs. Forgive the building, the energy around the building. Forgive the other people at the table. And then check in with yourself. Is Aunt Martha still an 8, 9, or 10, or did it go down a little bit? If it went down a little bit, great. Let's keep going. Wait 24 hours and do it again. So what's going to happen on Christmas that year? She's not going to be able to push your buttons as hard. You're not going to care. It's not going to work. And it's probably going to irritate her because you're not going to react the way you usually do. And you're going to go home thinking, wow, that was actually a better Christmas than it usually is. Why? Because she's not going to be able to push your buttons and make you mad.
Interesting. I love that. Yeah, that's a very cool practice and something that's very applicable for the holiday seasons where I'm sure a lot of people's challenging people in their life is going to be family members and close family members. And yeah, Christmas time can certainly do that with the stress surrounding it.
Don't get me wrong. I have been known to leave functions, get into the car and say, I forgive them. I forgive them. I forgive them. I forgive them like 100 billion times, right. Not meaning any of it, but it puts me back into the forgiveness mindset. And then I want you to do this practice every night before you go to sleep, because your body heals itself while you're sleeping. So I'll go home that night and I'll do it for real. So I'm not saying your family is never going to piss you off. They are. They're your family. They know where the buttons are, but it's just not going to bother you as much. And if it does bother you, okay, well, this is a marathon, not a sprint. We probably have to dive into that memory and go back and add them to your list. It happens. You know, your forgiveness practice is never over because humans irritate other humans, don't they? Something's always going to make you mad, but you're going to feel better. You're going to look better. People are going to notice. They're going to say, Simon, did you get a haircut, or you're doing something's different? You look so good today. Well, yeah, because you're not as angry, and people are going to notice. They're going to feel it. They're going to feel your energy. It's not going to be as nasty.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because I think of English culture, and especially around Christmas time, like it's a active participatory role to push people's buttons. Like everyone does it in a comical setting, so it's kind of evens out. So it actually turns into a very like amusing place to be. I wonder if it's probably a little bit different maybe in North America. I'm not sure.
No, humans are humans, you know. I mean, if you're sitting next to Aunt Martha, you're not going to be irritated by what she does, but she's going to push the same buttons. So, and I've been sober 34 years and I'm telling you to do this. You could turn it into a mild drinking game because you know she's going to do it. So you might as well laugh about it without hurting her feelings too much, because that'll make things worse, won't it? But, you know, it's a question of, it's not going to help Aunt Martha change into this beautiful human being. It's going to do nothing for her, but it's going to do everything for you. Absolutely. And that's who I care about. I care about you.
For sure. Is there a particular type of person that massively struggles with forgiveness?
I think we all struggle with it. Even the people who say, and I run into these people all the time, I don't have anybody to forgive. Their brains have locked a bunch of stuff in the back closets, and they probably have forgiven most of the people, but they didn't forgive the energy around the people, which means it's probably going to still hang around their energy field. So everybody, I haven't run into one person that doesn't have somebody they can forgive, maybe even somebody who cut them off on the highway just 24 hours ago. There's always somebody you can forgive. And if you don't think there's anybody to forgive, then just start with this. I forgive myself for not being able to forgive, and the energy around this thought. Just say that for a week, and that's going to start the engine. That's going to start the ride. I mean, it's going to start everything, and you might remember things. And when you're meditating, if you have a memory and it irritates you, write it down, and then that night forgive it. If you can. If you can't, well, forgive it, and then see, is it still number 9 or is it a number 8 now? See, this is why this is kind of a it's kind of a slog, isn't it? It's going to take some time. Sure. You're not going to get a number 10 person down to a 1. It took me months to get my parents down to a 1. It took a long time, but I was persistent, and eventually I forgave them.
Yeah, I think age and time must come into it. I can think of people when I lived in Europe, 15 years ago, that were absolute 9s and 10s. But now when I think about them, because the time's gone, they're not in my life anymore. Like then it doesn't, it actually I feel bad about myself about how I actually acted in those situations and how ridiculous it was in the first place. So I think time and age must come into those things, because especially over a 30-year period, and how people significantly change over short periods of time. Like I'm a completely different person to who I was when I was 30, to I was 20, to I was 10, etc. So that's always an interesting thing for me to think about, that the person who I had a massive problem with when I was 30 was like, we were 30, we were ridiculous. And I'm sure there's no way that person's the same person now. It'd be very, very unlikely anyway. And I feel like once you have a little bit more life experience, you actually don't tend to create those 9s and 10s anymore, because you've got a good filter for who is I don't want to say bad person for you, but that's kind of just like the way it is. I see people in my life now in kind of parent groups that I know that I'm not going to be friends with these individuals. Like, this is not going to be. I've seen 100 of these people. They are not for me. They might be for other people, but they are not for me. And they're just somebody who I'm aware of. They're not, and I don't put them in my close circle, so they don't even have the ability to make me angry.
That's why I want you to forgive memories, because the person you were and I was at 30 is not the person I am now in my, at 63. I was a completely different person right there, with a completely different skill set. And I hadn't learned a lot of stuff yet. I could forgive that person. And the memories of the people I was angry at in my 30s, I can forgive that too. So compartmentalizing your life when you're creating your lists, you might have a bunch of people you want to just toss immediately from the now, but you're going to have memories from the past, and you just go through them piece by piece. And if you run into a memory that just causes you to get really angry, okay, we'll pick it apart. It's a dumpster. So let's pick out the pieces in the dumpster until you can get to the center and eventually forgive the person. And that person might be you. This is a journey.
Yeah, I'm 40 now, so when I look back at those examples in my life, especially around myself, I wrap it with forgiveness. I wrap it with grace, and it's led me to the person who I am today. And hopefully, I believe now it's put me in a good place to teach my children better habits. I can't imagine being a parent when I was 20 or if I was 30. Like I don't think I'd have the psychological capability to teach them the things I would prefer to teach them where I'm now. I'm 40 years old. So it's super interesting when you can kind of pull it apart like that. And just thinking about the conscious effort needed to step into a place of forgiveness and grace, and how challenging that is for people. And I just wonder, if you're not in a conscious state of forgiveness or putting yourself in that state multiple times during the day, or especially when you're beginning to feel those other emotions come up for you, if you're not in a place of forgiveness, are you in the place of the opposite, which would be like vindictive and vengeful and angry? Like, are we if we're not in forgiveness, are we there, or are they just like simmering on the surface?
Sometimes I think they're just simmering. Sometimes you do get people that are vindictive. I think everybody is all over the map. On a 10 scale, I think people are 1 to 10 at various points in their life. But if you find yourself getting really, really angry during the day at a particular person, or something's happened to you, write it down and add it to your list. And if it's a higher number, just add it to the list. I use this practice every night, and I think about what I'm grateful for. And sometimes if it's been a hard day, maybe I'm only grateful for a hot cup of tea, and that's fine. And then I think about who I want to forgive. And I always start with the easy ones. And I never forgive more than 10 people at a time every night. Why? Well, I'm an overachiever, well-documented overachiever. I've written a bunch of books, done a bunch of stuff, cancer survivor, blah, blah, blah. So I got my list together. And I did, believe it or not, I forgave cancer. I forgave chemo. I forgave radiation. I forgave the energy around all of these things. I forgave them as if they were real. And it really helped. But I got my list together, and I must have had 50 or 60 names on this list. And I thought, I'm going to be like a phoenix rising from the ashes. I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and everything's going to be forgiven. It's going to be brilliant. Didn't work out that way. Remember the Japanese water study about changing your cells from, let's say, dark to light? Okay, well, they have to go someplace. So I overwhelmed my system, and I spent the next 3 days in bed with what everybody thought was the stomach flu. It was not the stomach flu. It was just my body trying to clear all those years of anger out of my system, and it took it a while to catch up. So I only want you to do as I say, not as I did. I'd really prefer it if you just did like 10 to 12 people a night. So when you've forgiven somebody, my son says his shoulders feel lighter. And that's weird. And he says it's weird and he doesn't understand it. But he said it legit felt like his shoulders were lighter. Some people feel energy move in their solar plexus, which is right above your belly button, right in the center of your belly. Most people get really tired. They just get really tired. And so that's how you know something is moved. The dial has tipped just a little bit. And then if you can look at the person's name and you don't feel anything, well, then you're done because you don't care. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for neutrality. You're going to remember, but you won't care. And you might even pick out the pockets of love from the memory. But it's going to take you a minute.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's a really great practice to do it in the evening before bed, as quite quickly you're going to be engaged in alpha, theta, delta brainwaves, where you'll be able to kind of process those things a lot more. And there's so much research and science in regards to practicing those things at that particular time because of the way your brain's going to be able to absorb that information, rather than in the middle of the day when you're in high beta and you're focusing on all these other things. So yeah, that's a whole other podcast for sure. But just thinking about what we've kind of like speaking today, and how it connects with nutrition and kind of what we do here at True Hope. And to forgive yourself really is to feel deserving of forgiveness. I'm sure that's a first step for a lot of people, to the point where people are deserving of a strong body, a strong mind, good food, good nutrition, happiness, and so much more. And a lot of people don't feel like they actually deserve these things. And what we find here at True Hope is a lot of people come to us as their last hope. So many people have tried all the doctors, they tried all the drugs, and they've not been able to serve them or help them. And they find us as this like last standing hope that they actually have. And forgiving the person that they maybe used to be, who tried all these like conventional means, and then finding a more nutritional based way to kind of heal their body and mind. It's a really great first step forwards to creating the change to become the person they want to be. And you can't make any significant change without that forgiveness piece. I think that's hugely, hugely important. And I've got the honor and pleasure here of speaking with so many people on a daily basis who have struggled with their mental health for sometimes decades, have been through every drug under the sun, and then they finally find our product. And I have conversations with these people, and they've gone through a very interesting psychological shift when it comes to that self-forgiveness within themselves, right. letting a lot of anger and resentment and hatred go. And actually how our products, especially our flagship product here, which is a broad spectrum micronutrient formula, which is basically providing the brain specifically and the body with huge amounts of nutrition in very absorbable forms, that they can actually start to feel better and think better and behave differently in a very quick period of time. And if you couple that with forgiveness and grace, people's minds change so dramatically. And it could become something you can like be kind of like addicted to, like that amazing, great feeling that comes from something that's a free practice to take. So a free practice to do, and a minor investment in regards to like the nutritional supplementation. Yeah, I just wanted to pull those two pieces together, because in our world here, when it comes to like providing amazing, well-researched nutrition to people, it's very interesting what kind of state in their life they're at when they find these formulas. And it's inspiring.
You will find, first of all, everybody is worthy. You are worthy enough to live a life of joy. You are worthy enough to live a life of happiness. And as you get happier and you start to lose your anger, you're probably not going to be reaching for the chips and the bad health food, because you just won't. Because all of a sudden you're going to start to feel better. So you might reach for, I'm a clean eater, so you might reach for clean food that has no garbage in it. That's pretty much what clean eating is. And why are you going to do this? Because you feel better. And because you feel better, you're worthy. You're worthy enough to lead a life of joy. Why haven't you led that life up to now? Well, remember when I was holding my glass of anger in front of my face? Well, you don't have the glass of anger in front of you now. So now you can be the person that you were always meant to be. You can be your authentic self, because you're not focused on the anger. And you've tossed all of the other people. See, when you do this process, Jim Rohn has a very famous quote, and it's, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
That's right.
So who are you spending time with? And as you start this process, even with the easy ones, people will leave your life. Why? Because you're not angry anymore, and they want you angry for whatever reason. They want you angry. Maybe they like it. Maybe it makes them feel better, but they're going to start to leave your life. Don't be scared. They need to leave your life. And new people that are match your vibration, if you will, like energy attracts like energy, will float into your purview. People who are healthy and actually want to see the best things for you.
Absolutely.
And that's a scary thing, especially if you live with these people.
Yeah.
But it's if you live with these people and you can't move, well, then just start spending time on podcasts like this and start spending time with healthier people. That's really it. Read good literature, that kind of thing. And trust that little bird in your shoulder. It knows the way.
Yeah. And if you start to transmit these energies of happiness, love, joy, gratitude, forgiveness, you will be attracted to better nutrition, better food, being connected with nature. You are not going to want to fuel your body with garbage and spend all day and all evening watching TV. Like, it just doesn't work like that. So if you can start putting some things into your life right now with that self work, you can absolutely do quite amazing things. And then, yeah, as I say, for me, like when I found that 10 years ago, it was an addicting feeling, and it's motivating me to continue to do that for the rest of my life. So yeah, that's a wonderful way to wrap that up. Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about your book, The Ultimate Path to Forgiveness: Unlocking Your Power? Why did you write that, and who's it for?
We live in an angry world. And once my friends and I came up with this method, there were 3 of us. And once we came up with this method of forgiveness, we immediately wanted to share it because our world is angry and nobody teaches you how to forgive. So we want to teach people how. So we can see if we can move our world from something that's really kind of toxic right now to something that's more joyful and loving. At the end of the day, that's why I wrote it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And where is the best place for people to check out that book and connect with you?
You can go to my website, and my first name, thanks to my mother, is spelled a little strangely. Thanks, Mom. And it's Katharine Giovanni.com. You can also find the book on Amazon. I have the audiobook because I know some people don't like to read. I have the audiobook, ebook, and paperback available for people.
Beautiful. Well, I'll make sure those links are in the show notes so people can easily navigate and access those. But Katharine, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I think I've learned a lot of things, and I think the people listening will have done as well. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Beautiful. Well, that is it for this episode of True Hope Cast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada. We'll be back with you next week with another amazing show. You can connect with us on all of our social media channels. You can leave us a review on iTunes if you feel like you want to do that. Again, all the information and links to connect with Katharine, to connect with her or to find out her books, I'll put in the links in the description. But that is it for now. We'll see you soon.